Okay, guys, I have news for you that may surprise you. We may not have a second wave of coronavirus, but the reason why is not so good. It's because the first wave may actually never end. We are already now halfway into June, and it doesn't seem like the first wave is going to end, at least at the national level, because of a number of new exploding hotspots. The out of control case growth is happening overwhelmingly in Trump states, states with Republican governors. So first, let's get this out of the way because I know people are going to want me to talk about California. Now, California is the exception here. California is a state with a Democratic governor. They have been on paper locked down for a very long time, but things are not going well in California. I have no interest in hiding this from you. California has been so-called closed for months, but their cases are going higher and higher, not precipitously, but they are going up. It's not clear what's going on. My brother lives in LA, says, seems a lot of people are just ignoring the guidelines, that he drove by some restaurants that were open with people sitting inside without masks. So it seems as though what's happening in California, at least Southern California, is people are just ignoring the guidelines that are in place. But most of the early contagion states that were early hotspots have curves that are looking really, really good. An example of that is New York State dramatically turning their curve around. Here in Massachusetts, I'm just genuinely thrilled to see that our curve has fallen off a cliff. There's a spike last week. If you're looking at the chart, it's a false spike because on that day, they added presumptive cases from the prior 3 months. So that's a bit of it looks weird, but we've only got around 200 new cases per day here. There are only a couple hundred people total, I'm talking about in the entire state, left in ICUs. Outdoor dining is safely reopening. I sat outside at a cafe this weekend. I put a picture of me doing it on Instagram. You'll see just how safe it is. But in the meantime, while things are improving dramatically in many states, a ton of right-wing states that reopened early or never fully closed are failing hard, and it is difficult to watch. In Florida, spiking so aggressively that the chart I'm showing, it almost looks wrong, but that is the real data to the extent that it is not being understated by Florida, which has been a problem in Florida. Then in Texas, again, cases climbing more and more and more with worse and worse looking numbers. We look at Arizona, where I have a bunch of friends. Arizona, it's climbing in Arizona as if we're at the beginning there. Friends told me almost nobody's wearing masks indoors in stores. Everything's open. People are pretending everything's fine. And indeed, the case numbers in Arizona reflect it. There are others we could look at. North Carolina is a big one where also cases just will not stop climbing. So let's talk about something now, because I want to deal with the disinformation propaganda that's going around ahead of time so that you will be prepared to fight it when you see it. There's a narrative that we're hearing from the right that the problem with coronavirus in the United States is Democrats in power, because the early hotspots are all liberal cities and Democrats are terrible at running cities and it's chaos. And that's why if it weren't for Democratic led cities, this never would have been a problem in the United States. Now, most of you know that that's ridiculous, but they will then go on to say, because of those early failures by Democratic governors and mayors, the virus has now spread to red states, even though red states did all of the right things and blue states did all of the wrong things. They're also now starting to blame Mexico for some of the spikes in places like Texas and Arizona. There's no evidence of that. So this is a completely disjointed sort of Gish Gallop narrative that they are putting together. And I want to give you a coherent, sort of unified theory for what's going on here. The early hotspots were caused by two things: population density and many direct flights to the areas most affected where the early cases were coming from, right? The early hotspots in the United States were New York, San Francisco, California, Chicago, Boston, as examples. These are four of the densest, those are actually the four densest metro areas in the country, not necessarily highest population, but highest population density. And they have tons of flights to Asia and Europe. Here in Boston, we had nonstop flights to multiple Chinese cities, tons of flights to even more Chinese cities via Hong Kong and Tokyo and other places. We had nonstop flights to Italy, Other European cities where we now know coronavirus already was there in late 2019 and early 2020. Same thing, Illinois was an early hotspot. Chicago O'Hare Airport, major hub for American Airlines flights, United Airlines, I'm going from memory here. San Francisco, tons of flights to China and other Asian countries where with one stop, you can get to even more cities in China. New York has multiple major airports. New York has LaGuardia, Newark, and JFK. Newark and JFK, both individually, are some of the major gateways to Europe and to Asia. And you had two of them there. So that's why early on, the cases started in those places. And right-wing states often said then, we don't have to do that much because we're not having a problem. These blue states, to different degrees, locked down and started mitigation. And cases slowly trickled throughout the country into red states. But a lot of the red states never fully closed or did but reopened quickly or did but people ignored the guidelines. And over time, the early hotspots that were brutally hit because of the population density and the flights to the early areas in Europe and Asia were mitigated. But the red states, meanwhile, were just churning, as is a popular new phrase on the internet, churning cases. And when you look at the timing, yeah, the blue cities were the early hotspots, but you look at the curve, it was up and then down because of what was done. Look at some of the red states. In March, they really weren't having a problem. In April, they were only having a small problem. But when you look at the curves now, they haven't even peaked. These curves are horrifying. It's just up, up, up. And in 10 days, it could be absolutely insane in some of these places. I'm genuinely glad right now to be in Massachusetts, where everybody's wearing masks at indoor businesses. Our positive test rate is down. Yesterday, it was like 1.5%. Of all the tests done yesterday, 98.5% of the people tested did not have the virus. That's a very, very good sign. What's going on in these other states is absolutely horrifying. Now, just one more thing to protect you from disinformation. The right-wingers are also insisting cases are up in red states because there's so much testing going on in those places. This is not true. The data is available. Take Florida as an example. Florida recently had a 36% increase in new cases, but only an 18% increase in testing. The positive test rate went up to 7.5% on that day in Florida. If you test more people and find a higher percentage of positives, that's not good. And they will also say, well, cases may be up, but hospitalizations and deaths aren't. Those are on a 10 to 20 day delay. So the cases that are increasing now will be followed by deaths and hospitalizations tragically over the next 10 to 20 days. Don't fall for the bogus talking points. Understand what's going on and recognize we may not have a discreetly identifiable second wave because the first wave may never end.